Yeah, little numbness in the leg and toenails grow back. It's like the third time I've lost that one anyway, so it
Uh,
must be cursed.
oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, little numbness in the leg and toenails grow back. It's like the third time I've lost that one anyway, so it must be cursed.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's weird.
And now I got to figure this out because I got two of us. How do I mute this? Sorry, guys. First live stream. Oh, yeah, here we go. Mute that.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Anthony, what's
Yep.
going on?
Yeah.
Much. A little
Vance,
technologically impaired over here, so
can you say something again for me, Vance?
You got me here?
Yeah, I gotcha.
Okay.
If anybody's watching right now, can you just come on in the chat and let us know that you can hear us and see us all right? It's kind of weird because I have to mute my YouTube or I hear the YouTube version of us like 15 seconds after the Zoom version of us, and it gets super annoying. All right. Someone says yes. If anybody wants to see what's going on, by the way, for you three, if you guys want to see what's going on, you can go to my YouTube channel and you'll be able to see like the chat. It might mess you up, but just if you open that window, just mute the YouTube video. And I've got our screen. I maximized it to cover the YouTube screen so I don't see myself or hear myself. Welcome everybody to the chat. I'm just going to hop on and post that we're live. All right, guys, we're over live on the All right, guys, we're live over on the YouTube channel right now. Just go to Mindful Hunter on YouTube and we're having a chat, answer some questions, hang out, talk sheep, goat, and getting ready for elk. All right, see you there. All right, I think we're good to go. It's been a while since I did one of these. So where do we start, man? You know where I think we should start? Because Anthony had his ass kicked most recently out of the four of us. Why don't you give us a little rundown? Because, dude, I felt kind of heartbroken because I was watching your packing and your food prep and like you were getting ready to go in. I'm not talking like 7, 8, 9 days. Like you guys, you were planning on going in for a while. No?
yeah, we were packed for 13 days was the plan.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, sometimes things just don't work out, and it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. And we regrouped and we ended up making something work in the long run. So unfortunately, second day, one of the guys on the trip with me ended up getting a little bit banged up, and we were having a few other little issues there. So we decided that the best plan of attack was to bail off that mountain and regroup back at home, and had a few other options. So sat at home for a couple days and right back out we went, and then battled the weather there, but we got in some goats and we made it happen there for a couple of guys that had never been on the mountain before.
So when you say the guy you went with got banged up, was it like an acute thing? Was it like an injury, or was it more just wear and tear stuff that wasn't expected?
Wrong boots, basically,
Okay.
is what it came down to.
Okay.
Tried a new pair of boots, different brand he never wore before, and that brand in the boot that he normally wears, or in the size that he normally wears, just didn't quite feel right. So he sized up a little bit, went with a wide boot, felt really good around the house, around town, but he unfortunately didn't have a chance to spend much time with a pack on his back hiking around with them. And we found out pretty quick that they were the wrong boots for his feet. And
Man.
by the end of day 2, his feet were so tore up, like blisters, and it's unfortunate, but it happens. There's not much you can do about it at that point.
Yep.
So we just made the decision to take him home and try again.
Yeah.
And
Not much else you can do, really.
No.
Man, that's rough. It's been busy up near home for you, though. Lots of stuff's been going on.
Oh yeah, I've had a strong start to the season here. We got out a couple times for goats before I was off on the sheep hunt there. Took a buddy out that hasn't been able to get it done yet, and unfortunately we weren't able, but we saw goats, and as you would know, we saw a pretty good one. And
Yeah. Yeah.
didn't work out for him, but we had a couple good days there in the mountain, and headed up north for the sheep hunt. We saw rams the first day we were in there. We actually saw a ram that I believe was legal. Made the call that he was a young ram. He wasn't a very big ram. I honestly think he was probably 6, 7 at best. Believe he broke the nose on his left side. He was broken off probably about 3-4 inches short on his right side, and we just made the call to go ahead and just let him walk either way. And came home and ended up the other side of the province there, chasing goats with a couple of guys that had never been in the mountain before, and we were able to get one done up there. We ran into some pretty rough weather there for a few days, spent some time in the tent, saw some other sheep, and had made a game plan to go after them the next day. And unfortunately, they just got weathered in. You couldn't see 50 feet from the tent till probably 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and pouring rain, and just the way she goes. And we had some snow there for a few days, and we ended up pulling out of there and heading to another spot. So that was the end of my sheep, probably for the year. We'll see. Might sneak up for another few days here later in September, but we got lots of moose tags to fill, so might be on the back burner now till next year.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Leighton, I feel like I'd be interested in hearing your thought process deciding to scout instead of go for a hunt, because I think it's like a tough decision to make, but I think given what turned out for you guys, I think it's a great choice and something I'd like to do more of in the future. So maybe give us the kind of overview of what the game plan was originally, and then why you kind of changed your mind and what you ended up doing.
Yeah, well, the game plan was originally to go kind of early August, mid-August for a goat up in Anthony's neck of the woods there. But me and 2 buddies ended up getting a sheep draw in the Kootenays. All 3 of us did, which is pretty rare, I'd say.
What kind of draw odds?
Well, that's the thing. I guess it's not that rare. They were like, I think on the LEH, when you print it off, it actually gives you the actual odds, and I think they were like 1.3 to 1.
Okay.
So almost 1 to 1, basically, right? So
yeah,
we kind of beat the odds a little bit based on the fact that it's 1.3 to 1. But the decision was just we don't know the area. We did a lot of e-scouting, but as you guys know, you and Vance know, e-scouting only goes so far, right? So we wanted to ground truth the area. We wanted to ground truth that area, like get some boots on the ground, see if trails actually existed, see if goats actually existed. We all had a weekend that was available to us, and really glad we went. We checked off a lot of boxes for the hunt. So basically now we are committed to going back on opener, which is September 10th, to that area and hunting that area. Whereas if, trails didn't exist and goats didn't exist, the backup plan in September would have been to go north and reassess and kind of go to like some known areas that we have up north and and kind of hit it hard up there. So I think it was super valuable. I think, and the other thing too that we did was we tested a lot of gear while we were out there. Some things we've been, some new purchases, some old purchases and stuff like that, and just kind of seeing what we might bring in the pack in September and what we might not. So it all panned out. It was super beneficial to get boots on the ground prior to actually going into an area.
Yeah, I think I want to pick your brain a little bit about some of the insights you had on gear, but we'll leave that for a bit yet. I was even just listening to the most recent Go Hunt podcast that went up today, and Brady Miller was talking about going in for scout and mule deer. And it's like, I think I underestimate how much time, and I'm not talking like preseason scouting, like I'm not talking getting up like months before. Like these dudes go and find an animal, and they might go in like 2 or 3 times before their hunt actually occurs. And I think when you're dealing with draw tags in the States that are a bit more premium and have a bit more value to them, people don't mind burning a couple of weeks scouting time for like one hunt. On where here, I think it's because it's over the counter. We almost take it for granted. And it's like, yeah, we'll go up and we got our 7 to 10 days and we'll just do the best we can. When I know for myself, if I did more stuff like you just did, I think I would probably end up having more success on the actual hunt.
Yeah. We've done scouting in our area. I'm in region 3 for mule deer, but that's easy. Like we're home, right? Like something, and I've talked to Anthony about this before, like, retirement wise, like I'd love to move up north, like region 6, region 7 type of area, right? Like just so I can put boots on the ground more easily in advance of those hunting seasons in, or July, August. It's not super feasible, with 2 kids and a job and all the other distractions in life, right? But in this instance, where our draw is only about 5 hours from home, so we were able to make a quick trip down there and make it work. But yeah, I think there's a lot to be said about like you said, ground truthing an area and making sure that everything that you've been told or everything that you've researched is valuable, realistic, true information, right?
Yeah, 100%. I know a day or two could have saved me and Vance
Yeah,
a whole lot of heartache. Vance, I had the fortune of being hey, I got one cat who's like trying to eat another cat. Get out of here, you big bastard. I had the fortune of being able to sit in the mountains for another week after our hunt and kind of digest anything and then spew out an entire second episode of that podcast series. I'd be interested in your kind of like thoughts and takeaways and just insights you've had since you went home from our hunt, like things, yeah, just anything that's kind of occurred to you and give people an update physically on how you're doing.
Physically better.
Yeah.
Lost the toenail on the big toe there, and still have no feeling on my upper right leg or my foot on the right side. I'm thinking
A pinched nerve somewhere.
I'm thinking, yeah,
like it just,
I think just from overdoing it. And I mean, we were drinking lots of water, but I don't know how much, like probably not enough. I don't know.
Yeah.
Between some dehydration and pinched nerves, I'm thinking. Other than that, the blisters, oddly enough, not bad. I couldn't even stab them with I'm a heavy duty mechanic, so I always wear work boots. So the bottom of my heels are so callous, they were under the callus. So I actually took a scalpel blade. I'm thinking. I took a scalpel blade and just cut and drained them out. They were better after that. But yeah, it was probably 3 days. So that's where so on the mass, so we left and you had 8, I think I had 6 days technically.
Yeah.
And I say 3 could have gone in. And my biggest concern on all that was I have to go back to work.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, if I need 3 days to recover now, we go in for, at that, it would have been 5 or 4. I'm probably going to need an extra day to recover at the end. And in the end, kind of bummed out, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Shit happens, man. Shit
Yeah.
happens. Yeah. Yeah. It was a tough
And
one.
and it's tough too, because at the time, you know, we're thinking we got to get out so we can get to the new spot. And I think that kind of did more harm than good. And not maybe going out slower wouldn't have been as banged up, you know, quicker recovery kind of thing. But yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. We also had, you know, we were going in for
There's nowhere
12
to camp.
days and we were
Yeah.
coming out on day 4. So it was like we still had close to 9 days worth of gear in our packs. Like packs were at least 70 pounds still.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, I tried to convey this appropriately. Hey, this is ridiculous. Hang on. Stop it.
That's why I just locked myself in the garage. Nobody can
Yeah.
bug me in here.
I'd lock my kids in the basement.
Yeah, I
Leslie,
come
do you want to
lock
come
the
over and
garage
say
and-
hi?
Yeah.
I'm at home. My wife is in Puerto Rico right now. And so I'm on solo dad duty. Come on over. Do you want to put the headset on so you can hear? Here, sit up here. Can you say hi, everybody?
Hi.
Hey.
How's it
Hey.
going?
Can you see yourself up there? What do you think of Dad going hunting? You don't like it. You don't like it because I leave, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your favorite animal down here?
That one.
The big elk? Yeah, I think so too. Are you
I
gonna
think
come
that's
hunting with
everybody's
me
favorite.
when you're old enough?
No.
No? What about scouting? Will you come scouting and help me look for animals?
Maybe.
You just don't want to kill anybody. Yeah, that's all right. Do you want to say anything to everybody? There's some people on YouTube watching. Do you want to say hello to them?
Hi.
You want to go back to your iPad? Okay. Yeah,
Gonna take your job.
yeah, I know. I'm getting her prepared.
Yeah.
I also think what's hard to explain to people is like the sense of overwhelm and the mild like anxiety and panic when you get into stuff that's that terrible. And I think mentally I needed to get out.
Yeah.
I could not be in there anymore. Like it was that bad and that claustrophobic. We held it together. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it
we
wasn't
weren't
like
crying and
we were
rocking
freaking
in the
out,
corner or nothing.
but I was able to hold it together because we were making progress to get out. And I think, and the idea of like stopping, and also we're not exaggerating. There was literally, we didn't pass a single spot that was flat enough to even just put like one bedroll out. That
No.
entire, where we turned around, I think we probably could have found something where we turned around.
Yeah.
And then after that, as soon as we left, except for the actual in the creek, we didn't pass a single flat spot until we got back to the road to hike to the truck.
Yeah, it was even hard to find somewhere to stand to catch your breath. Like
Yeah.
there was nothing. Like you were still side hill the whole time.
Yeah,
She was
100%.
rough.
Quick note to everybody in the chat. I'm going to do my best to keep on top of things. And if anybody's got any questions, jump in here. Pike Slayer 69 said, what are some good boots for sheep hunting? I like stiff boots. I just did a review of the Scarpa Rebel HD. They're kind of my go-to boot. It's my favorite boot right now. What is everybody else using for the steep stuff? What did you guys run on your most recent hunt? Anthony, what are you in?
This year I'm running the Handwag Alaskan GTX.
Yep.
I'd been running the Mendel Islands for a couple of years prior to that, and I'm really liking them. They're touch taller. I find right out of the box for myself, they were a very comfortable boot. Very happy with them so far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked Handwags, but I couldn't get them wide enough. I had the I can't remember if it's Alaskan or there's another Might have been the Trapper tops that I had.
Okay,
There's like
yeah.
3 or 4 leather ones that are like all very similar looking.
Yeah.
But I really liked them. But I was in them for 2 years and they were just a bit too small for my feet. Leighton, what about you? What are you in for boots right now?
Yeah, I'm handwag as well. I've got the Alaskans, but for mountain hunting right now, I'm generally using, well, I am using the Sirius 2 GTXs. It's a little bit shorter boot, a little bit stiffer boot for mountain hunting. I don't know. It's for me not having like a wide foot. The handwags fit really, really good. I've never had a break-in period with any pair of handwags I've had, so that's me. I'm not saying go out and buy a pair of handwags because you won't get blisters, but every single pair I've had so far have fit my foot really good. So,
And then you had you were in Scarpas too, but you were like, was it the
It was
Grand Drews?
no, I think it's like Kinesis
Okay.
backcountry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I ran them, I think since winter I've had them. So I ran them in spring, lots of training hikes. Yeah, they've been good. I should like with the blisters I had was like, it was my own fault. When we were going down, they kind of loosened up and I just ignored it. And my heel was slamming into the bottom of the sole. I actually got the blister was on the bottom of my foot, not on my heel.
I'd never seen that.
Yeah, and
before.
oh man, it was rough, but
yeah, when you sent me
again,
pictures after you got home, I've never seen a blister on the bottom of the like it was
it
right
was
on the bottom of your heel, and it was like big.
Yeah,
yeah, that was
it was a little tender walking. But yeah, again, that I don't blame the boot. That was me and just trying to power through and not taking an extra second to,
do you have Leuco tape?
It happened so fast. I don't even think he realized his feet were messed up until we got back to the road, and by then he was done.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it happens. It happened like basically before because I didn't have a hot spot, and I was just kind of like, oh, my feet hurt, and then I'm like, nope, I could already feel them blistered, and at that point they were numb anyways. I just kept hiking, but
yeah,
I'm a big fan of that Leuco tape.
It's the best.
Yeah,
I had some with me too. It was just
Oh, you got to put it on first, man.
Yeah, like every mountain hunt before you even leave the truck, it's on the whole foot. It's on for the 7 to 10 days. You don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah. I always wait till I get a hot spot and then I put it on if I need it.
No,
but you guys go like
before I even leave the truck, I tape my entire foot, and it makes a huge difference. That's running it in a few different style of boots, and even in the handwags, like my feet feel great. They just feel that much better when I tape up before I leave the truck.
All right.
I think my biggest thing, I've never actually got blisters before from anything I've ran. So I've never done measures to prevent stuff, which probably should now.
Yeah. I'll live and learn. What was I going to say? There's another good question here. Best wind protected single, and he says best. So I'm not gonna jump in and answer all these first. So I'll let you guys. We'll go clockwise this time. Best wind protected single person shelter. Anthony, what are your thoughts?
Well, to be honest, my only experience is with MSR Hubba Hubba.
Yep.
I've been running that now for 4 or 5 years, and I've been extremely impressed with it. We've gone through some pretty gnarly winds and some pretty good snowstorms in the past, and I have had zero issues with it so far.
And you've got a 2-person and a 3-person, right?
I do, yeah. I run the 2-man for if we're taking separate tents, and then for 2 people, we share the 3-man.
Do you have the carbon poles or the aluminum poles?
I have the carbon in both mine. Yeah, I have the newest tents out of from last year. Okay,
so that must have been because I think they upgraded those poles, because when I did that pig tent review, which is over 2 years ago now, they started to splinter like the first time I went to set them up. And so I told everybody to stay away from the carbon poles, but I think they came out with newer versions since then.
Yeah. That's what I'd heard too. I heard with the NX, when they went to the carbon poles, they were having issues with that.
Yeah.
I had an NX there for a while, and I sold it and I bought the newer version there last summer just because they're a little bit lighter. No issues with it yet. I've ran it on probably 5 or 6 hunts and haven't had an issue. So,
Leighton, what do you think? Best single person wind protected shelter?
So on this scouting trip, I brought my Durston X Mid Pro 2 tent, Dyneema tent.
Is that the one you've got the Dyneema one. I don't have the Dyneema one, do I?
Yeah.
Okay.
No. Yeah, you've got the, what are they still poly or still nylon?
I don't think it's still, it can't be still nylon. He's too smart for that.
Yeah,
it must be still poly.
So it was good. It was really good. It's a second time I've used it, but the first time really in like a mountain application, and I was pretty impressed. The only thing I didn't like with it being a single wall tent was the amount of condensation that it picked up was considerable. Like there was a lot of condensation in the mornings on the walls, but that was kind of a testing thing. I hadn't used it a lot. It weighs like 1 pound, I don't know, 3 ounces or something. So it's real nice in the pack, but
yeah,
I have a hard time moving away from my Nyack, my Hilleberg Nyack.
Yeah.
Especially when I'm going mountain hunting, maybe early August, I'm less worried about it, but like September 10th, when we go out for goat in the Kootenays in the mountains, I'm going to bring that. It's bomb proof, double wall tent, less condensation, better at bucking the wind, freestanding tent, which I like more than the trekking pole tents. I hate having to take my trekking poles out or cut a log or something to set my tent up. I think that's a little bit of a pain in the ass, and then you got to collapse everything and use your trekking poles to climb up the mountain if you're spiking out from camp or whatever, right? So for me, it's the Nyack. I have a hard time not throwing that in my bag unless the conditions are favorable for something other than that.
Yeah. Vance, you got any favorites?
I've never run one myself, but I was going to go with Hilleberg. If that's my number one concern with wind, I'd go with that.
Yeah, I got a second the Hilleberg, the Nyack specifically. I always tell people, if you were only ever going to own one tent and you are going to mostly sleep in it by yourself, I think it is the closest thing you can get. And again, it's not cheap. Like it's going to be like almost $1,000 to your front door if you're in Canada. But it is the closest thing to a do-it-all. I ran into Stephen Drake in a, not to be named winter goat hunting location that the whole planet knows where it is. And I was in the Solus from Stone Glacier, and in previous years I'd been in the Solo from Hilleberg, and he had the Nyack, and he was 100% fine, man. Like their 3-season shelters are so overbuilt that they're still beefier than most other shelters 4 seasons. Do you know what I mean? Like the Nyack is so hardcore. And it comes in right at around 4 pounds. So a couple other honorable mentions I will give is I really like my Sea to Summit Telos TR2. Being a big dude, there's significantly more room in the Sea to Summit than there is in the Nyack. It kind of has this like, I don't know what the geometric shape is, but it's a little bit narrower at the feet and wider up near the head. And then it's got this really weird pole pattern. And it took me a little while to figure it out so it didn't leak on me. There was this little zipper up top that I don't think I was closing properly. And it's a little bit more affordable, but it's not in the same category as the Nyack as far as like wind protection and all the rest of it go.
With the
you can. I was just
go
going to
ahead.
say you can get 10 mil poles for them, right?
Yeah.
So if you're really concerned, I'd just run 10 mil poles in the Hilleberg and you'd be set.
Yeah, I have the poles that come with the tent, and I've never had an issue with it, but I have heard of guys that have had poles snap on them. I think that's like extreme weather conditions. But if you are going out like where you expect extreme weather conditions, you can upgrade to those 10 mil poles, and that puts you pretty much right at 4 pounds. I think it's 310 without the bigger poles.
Okay, what hunt is everyone most looking forward to this year? And how many tags do you expect to cut? Let's start with Vance, because he's probably going to cut more tags than all the rest of us combined.
Well, we fold them here in Alberta, but probably most excited would be elk, and that's it's already open in some of the zones, but my main ones I go in open Sunday on the 1st. Myself, would it be got another bear tag, elk, moose, there, and 2 whitetails, so another probably 6.
Yeah, just 6 more tags. No big deal.
6. Few, probably be 3 or 4. Be no 4 with archery for sure, and then might do whitetail with the rifle.
And what do you think? Let's add family into this. What else are we cutting if we throw a wife and kids?
Immediate family, wife and
just
kids,
in your household.
Just in my household, yeah, probably 10, 11, something like that.
Guy, we gonna need to move to Alberta. Quick
I'm
answer.
sitting around. I got 4 freezers right here, so they got to get filled by the end, or we'll starve.
Quick answer to Michelle. Are the sizes of 1 to 2 man tents accurate? No, they're always like a 2-man just means 1. I've never seen a 2-person tent that actually fits 2 grown men. I have my daughter who was just on a moment ago. I think I could probably fit her in with me in some 2-person tents, but as a general rule, if you actually want to put 2 people in there, you got to go 3-person and up. And you kind of I don't even know why they do that. It's just marketing bullshit. The funny thing is, I think the reason some of my tent reviews started taking off is I was like the only guy who was inflating a sleeping pad and getting it on the sleeping pad inside the tent. And to me, that was that's all I want to see. Just show me what one dude on a sleeping pad looks like inside this tent, because then I understand, especially being in Canada, we don't get a chance to go in and see things set up and touch and feel stuff. So yeah. The sizes are not accurate, and even how they measure them is different. I have had who was it? Even Hilleberg, they would say, I was doing 2 tents and the Hilleberg said it was 5 inches longer, but when we got in, my head and toes were touching in the Hilleberg and they weren't in the other one. So unfortunately, there's no standardized measurement systems. And if you can't actually get the tent and get inside it, I would do a search on YouTube and try and find somebody inside the tent to get an accurate idea of how much room there actually is in there. But as a general rule, if you want to put 2 people in a tent, go 3P. And I would almost say, with TPs, I cut the number of people in half. A 4P TP is really only good for 2 people, especially if you put a stove in it. 6P is good for 3. I mean, I've got a 12-person shelter or TP from Seek Outside, and I don't know what little gnomes they're counting, how you would even fit 12 bodies. And it's there's just no way. We put 3 cots and a stove, and that was kind of except for a corner for gear, TP was full. So yeah, keep that in mind for TPs as well. Okay, back to question at hand. Favorite hunt you're looking forward to, and how many tags do you think you're going to cut this season, Leighton?
Well, the one I'm most obsessed with right now is just goat. I've been kind of like you on the pursuit for a little while now, trying to get
just a little while, half a decade.
yeah. And I'm no different. I've made mistakes the last 2 years on goats, and it's my fault. It's lessons learned for sure. But we've had our opportunities. We haven't been successful at this point, and it's time to make that happen. So having an LEH in an area where we seen a pretty decent number of goats over a 3-day period over the weekend is pretty exciting. So we're excited for that for sure. I'd say I'm always excited for mule deer. I've got a few pretty good spots around here where there's potential to bag a pretty decent mule deer. So that's usually in November. And then essentially me and a buddy got a bison hunt in January in the Pink Mountain area. So that would be pretty clutch if everything works out and we can make our way up there in January for that hunt and LEH. I'm pretty excited for that. So
What would you consider a decent mule deer score wise in your area? Like, what would you be like, oh yeah, this is a tank?
I've 2 or 3 different spots where there is a decent potential. I've seen deer in the 180, 190 range.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
That's a great deer.
I don't think I've ever seen, without like physically getting my hands on it and scoring it, a 200 plus, but it's hard to say.
Yeah.
But I've got a few areas around within 3 hours of where I live that I've seen 180 plus deer. So I'm not very excited about my October mule deer hunt. That's gone now, so we can cancel that. But I
Just
was
for
excited
everybody
about it.
who's curious, that was a fucking dig at me because in Leighton we're supposed to be going to Idaho for a mule deer hunt, and my dumbass bought a guiding outfit in Alberta, which basically had dates completely overlapping. It was only a 14-day season, and my hunt over there is like overlapping by 8 days. And I was trying to, basically like squish everything and move. I'm like, oh, if we go down, we can go for 5 or 6 days. And he was the one who sent me a message, and he's like, I don't think this is sounding like a very good idea. I think you need to cancel this hunt. So yeah, just for
No, it's all good,
context.
man. I was just busting your balls. But yeah, no, I was actually pretty excited about that. But it did seem like the data we got back from certain individuals about that area, it was almost kind of this like bittersweet thing where, I mean, the adventure would have been worth it for sure. Like
But I think we could have had better mule deer hunting here.
For sure. That's what I mean. Like
Yeah.
I just said, like we were told that like you see a 150 in Idaho where we had our tag, you shoot it.
Yes.
Whereas like I've got areas here, so now I can use my time. So I'm going to backfill that hunt with something else. It won't necessarily be mule deer because I go in November, like around Remember and Stay for the rut. But I'm going to backfill my time in October with something else, and I haven't quite figured out what that is yet. It'll maybe depend on whether or not we're successful in September for goat, or whether or not we switch gears and maybe try and do some elk or something like that. But I've got a little bit of wiggle room now because of that. But you still owe me one.
I do. I'll make it up to you. I promise.
Yeah.
What are you most looking forward to, Anthony? I think I can guess with you.
Well, I got a pretty busy fall lined up. We got 4 moose tags here in the family between myself and my parents, my brother. So September, my parents got a couple weeks of moose, so I'll be sticking around helping out with that, and that'll roll right into my LEH through the end of September, most of October. My brother's never killed a bull, so we'll probably spend most of the time trying to get him in on something. I've killed my share of moose, so but the most, and then probably throw some goat in there as well. I'm pretty fortunate where we are here. I got quite a few options within an hour or two from the house here. I can be hunting goats on any given day, so might throw some of that in there. But what I'm looking most forward to is my son turns 10 here on October 2nd. So there's going to be lots of time spent in the woods with him this fall. Get him out chasing some grouse here in October, and then we got 10 days, kind of early middle of November there, we're going to head out and see if we can't get him on some deer. So we'll have 5 deer tags, I think, between the 2 of us. So hopefully we can punch 2 or 3 of those. But
that's badass, man.
I'm
stoked.
Oh yeah. I actually just had him out at the range here tonight for 2 hours before this. And he's pretty good little shooter.
What's he going to be shooting?
So I ended up going with the Browning Micro in 6.5 Creedmoor this year.
Oh, that's a great choice.
Yeah, it came with a break. It's he's not a very big kid, right? I think he's only like 75 pounds or something like that. Not a lot behind him. So
yeah,
I didn't want him developing a flinch. He's always been an absolute sharpshooter there with his 22. I mean, I had him shooting probably when he was 4 years old. So he's a good shot, and I didn't want him to jump up to a bigger caliber there and then develop flinch. Comes with a break on it. It's like shooting a 223 or something. We're only shooting mostly at about 50 yards right now, but he's putting 15, 20 rounds inside of 2.5 inches at 50 yards. So for the first year shooting a big caliber, I'm pretty happy with that. We got quite a few stand locations that will put them, 20 to 70 yards from animals this fall. So should be good. He should have lots of opportunity. And if it goes the way that it seems to go for most of the beginners in my family, he'll probably shoot a 180-inch whitetail or something his first sit in the tree stands. I know my cousins there a few years ago, their first mule deer was probably about 170-inch mule deer, 170, 180-inch. First deer,
That's just
probably never. Yeah. Oh, I know, right? And I mean, it was only I think it was a 4x3, man, but his beams were, as thick as that elk behind you. It was an unreal deer, old deer, one tooth left in his head. He wouldn't have made the winter, and just an incredible deer for your first one, right? So hopefully he can find one of those for himself this fall. So
yeah, man, I don't know what I've realized. I can remember a few years ago, I would have like one big hunt of the year. And I remember all I wanted was like to be able to take more time off and do more hunts. But I remember being so keyed in on that one hunt that there was like a simplicity and a purity to it, and like a sense of anticipation. And now what I've noticed is the calendar gets so full. I'm losing that a little bit, and I need to be careful because I start thinking it more like just crunching numbers, and like I'm mentally already in another one before the first one is even over. So it is almost like I look at it more like work. Like, I was going over my schedule with the wife, and I got to go guide moose for 2 weeks for Lander this year as well. And it's like the next 11 weeks are just, it's crazy. But I think if I had to pick the thing that I'm looking forward to the most is my archery elk hunt in Wyoming. I've hunted Wyoming once before. It was one of my earlier backcountry hunts. Only found one bull, but in hindsight, I didn't even know what I was looking at. Like, it was a 350 bull all day. Had 9 cows, first week of October. And my buddy told me, he's like, oh, let's play it safe and go in the morning. And it turned out it was really because he had a hurt knee. And I was just like, and by the time we got over there, they were gone. Funny story. I think I told this story to Vance about the headlamp.
Yeah.
So we wake up at 3:30 in the morning because I'm jacked. And like, basically we're camped in this huge draw where it's like, must have been in like an old riverbed or something like that. And we're on like one side, and it's like almost a mile across to get to the other side. And the elk were on the other side, and we watched them right till dusk. And then went to bed that night, get up at 3:30 in the morning and start traversing this whole draw system. And at one point, I look behind me and I see these flickering lights. And I just instantly, I'm like, oh, it's dudes on horseback. They saw the same bull. They're coming in this morning. So I just dropped the hammer, and my buddy's with me. He's an ex-Marine from the States, but like a little bit overweight now. And I went so hard for like 2.5 hours that when we got it to the top, I thought I was going to puke. Like, I had that like level of exhaustion where I was just eviscerated. And we get all the way up there. We're soaking with sweat. We start getting freezing cold. And as the light comes up, I was looking at like the porch lights on a ranch house like 4 miles away. But because it was so early in the morning, they were like flickering. There's like no dudes on horse. There's nobody for miles, man. And that the elk was gone. And then like maybe an hour and a half later from the other side, we just hear, and it's like, oh, so the elk had like through the night walked around the kind of front of the ridge and gone on the other side, and there was other dudes camped there, and they must have smoked him, never to be heard from again. But Wyoming is that it's like the elk hunting you see on YouTube, man. Like,
yeah,
after what me and Vance had in BC, and like, I hunt elk in the piece, it's like it ain't no fucking postcard. Do you know what I mean? Like it's shit. Um, but Wyoming is like it is a postcard. Like the timber's kind of spaced out and you pop out into these meadows. Now you're at 10,000 feet, so you can barely breathe, but it's like, and there's big bulls and they seem to be more vocal. And yeah, man. So I had a buddy reach out like 2 years ago and say, listen, if you ever pull another tag in Wyoming, I've got horses and llamas. I'd love to help you go get an elk. Um, and I was coming up on, I had 6 points going into this year's draw. And it turned out that was the bare minimum that you needed. Like that was the cutoff. And when I got my first Wyoming elk tag back in 2017, I had 1 point and I got a draw. That's point creep. That's how fast to get a general elk tag in Wyoming. It went from 1 point to 6 points in 7-8 years. Now, I did do the special draw in Wyoming with the 1 point, and I think you might have been able to get away with 4.5 or 5 points with the special draw. You can basically pay a greater fee and get lower odds in the special draw. But I think the regular draw with tag was like $750 for the elk tag. But yeah, he's been sending me points for the past week and a half. We're going 21 miles in on horseback. And yeah, there's some big, big bulls back in there. And I'm really looking forward to just the whole DIY horseback hunt. Like we'll literally have camp. And I say horseback, I'm actually riding a mule. I'm kind of hoping he's a flashy mule. But we're gonna have 2 mules and 1 horse. So 1 pack mule, 1 mule for me, and then the horse he's riding. And I'm looking forward to riding all day, finding a camp, setting it up, going and hunting, and if we need to, moving camp again. Like I've done a little bit of horseback hunting in Montana, but it was kind of from a lodge type of deal. So you'd go out on the horses for the day, but you weren't camping off a horseback. So yeah, that's probably what I'm most looking forward to. All right. What do we got? What do we got next? During your recent death hike, what gear worked and held up to the punishment? Well, I can tell you what gear didn't work, and that would have been the outdoorsman's tripod and whatever device Vance was using to hold his inReach onto his chest.
That was the ASIAC.
Yeah, that did not. That's what I lost a tripod.
In hindsight, I was like,
yeah, and you lost an inReach.
Yeah.
I would say your boots probably, maybe it was just a lacing issue. I was shocked at how well my boots, like I had 0 foot problems and I literally went right back in. Like I had a little break. But my boots did phenomenally well. And we had wet feet all day because we both fell in a creek multiple times before we turned around and headed back out. Trekking poles. I had the Black Diamond Trail Ergo Corks, and you just had the Black Diamond. They're like one step down from mine. They're the full aluminum.
Yeah, I can't remember the proper name, but yeah, they're just full aluminum.
Did they have cork handles or no?
Yeah.
I think I've had mine for close to 5 years now, but we beat the shit out of those trekking poles, and they held up like a champ.
Yeah.
What do you guys have for trekking poles? Hey, how did those Durstons do?
They were awesome.
Really?
Yeah.
So even after Mark and all his poo-pooing them.
I mean, I need to put a bit more miles on them for sure. I mean, that's the first 3 days I put them in the mountains, but I mean, they weigh next to nothing. They have that quick connect. Instead of it being like a collapsing, they have basically a quick connect at 1 point, and I can show them to you actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, they got just a quick connect, and then which allows them to be like, so it's hard to see here, but so that's basically your quick connect is right here, and it just
Well, it's almost like
clips
an
in.
air compressor type thing.
Yeah, exactly, and it's just got a little button to release, right? And then just one flip lock basically to adjust your length. So collapsed, they're quite small. They're the lightest pair of trekking poles I own, and they maintain their diameter throughout because you don't have to collapse the trekking pole within itself, right?
Right.
So with like a black diamond or something, that the black diamonds have to go inside of that bigger diameter tube, right? So far, like I put some pressure on them. I used them for my Durston tent when I was out there. No issues whatsoever. But I got to put some heavy miles, some steep miles on them to really give like a proper conclusion on those.
What are you running for poles, Anthony?
I just got the aluminum black diamond cork handles. Been
Okay.
running them for 5 or 6 years. I bananaed one pretty good last year coming down through a boulder field.
Yeah, like it got like the end got stuck between two, and then you corked on it.
Yeah, we were going through some big boulders, and one rolled on me, and I went down. Trekking pole got stuck, bent it right over, and I bent her back, and used it the rest of last year. I used it on the first goat hunt this year. It doesn't quite collapse all the way, but still holding up. I did switch them out here before I went on my sheep hunt for a new pair of them. But
did you try and get them warranted? Black Diamond has an insane warranty.
No, I didn't even think of that, to be honest. I might now though.
You should give it a go. I've had them before tell me not even to bother to send the shit in, and they just sent me new stuff.
I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, they're pretty solid cool. When it comes to warranties. Let's talk. Yeah, go. Yeah, please.
Vance, you got the Asiac for your Garmin?
Yeah.
So I got the same thing, and I've had the same problem.
Okay.
This right here, right? Yeah. Same problem. So basically, what I found is that when you tension your pack right down, what it's doing is it's applying pressure, and basically that mechanism has like a release to release your Garmin.
Oh, yeah.
When it applies pressure on the back end, it applies pressure to that release, and I've had mine pop off too. So now I still use it because it is pretty handy to have in a location, but I'll actually run a carabiner through my strap.
Yeah.
So I put it there. I'll run the Garmin on my Asiac clip, but then also have the carabiner just for safety.
Yeah.
Because did you lose yours?
Yeah, it's gone.
Yeah.
I got a new one now. But yeah, it was about. And think if it wasn't just as rough. Like the hike in was decently. We were going over shit and through shit, and it was fine. But it was that slide alder, and it was what, within 100 yards of when you lost your panhead, probably. Like it was like panhead gone,
back to back.
Inreach is gone.
Yeah, that was a bit of a low moment of the hike out. I was like, oh well, we just lost about $600 worth of shit in 15 minutes. I was like, the rest of the hike, I'm all like, just like doing constant inventory.
Yeah.
But you know what it's like, man? It used to be like Salau on Vancouver Island, or if anybody's been to Haida Gwaii, like you feel like you're getting violated in almost a sexual manner. Like the aggressiveness with which that shit is pulling at you. Like, yeah, I can't tell you how many like EDC knives, those little clip knives that you keep in your pocket. It just got lifted right out of my pocket. I will not carry those in the field anymore because I just lose them all the time because of vegetation.
Yeah. If I'd had a backup carabiner or something, that would have been probably, which is actually my kind of idea now. I left the carabiner on the little loop it comes with.
What is the thought process though? Like, I don't understand.
I'm probably just going to put it in my pack,
in my top lid. Like, why do you need to look at it?
I run mine in a side pouch on my bino harness. So on me all the time, if I drop my pack, I still got it. I've never had issues sending.
So you got like a little messenger, like an InReach Messenger 2 or something? Like you don't carry the big one, like it's a little one?
No, I actually got the 66i still.
So you got the same one and you fit that whole thing in the side of your bino pouch?
So I have I'm running the old style Mystery Ranch vinyl harness still, and I
Okay.
just have one of their little belt pouches. I put one on either side.
Okay.
I keep my rangefinder in one and my inReach in the other.
Okay.
And I've never had issues with that.
I guess too, Vance, I'm forgetting. I asked you this question before, and I do think there is an emergency response argument to be made to keep it within reach in case, because like when I was a forestry engineer, we actually had to have a whistle within reach of our mouth. And that comes from like old falling safety standards, because if a tree falls on you or you break your neck and you can't actually move, you should just be able to like lean over and blow on a whistle. So I can understand from a safety perspective, if you ever had to pop that trigger, it's not going to do you much good in a lid way behind me.
Yeah. It was kind of that, just if you needed it. And then my big thing, I was just trying to keep, if it didn't have to go in the pack, my mind, I had more room for other shit in the pack.
Yeah.
And then also just with dropping, like a few times where it dropped and then moved to glass, then I could just grab it, throw it in my pocket. I didn't, not digging through a lid. In the end, it didn't work out as, planned, but that was the theory behind it anyway.
Yeah. The intentions were good.
The intention, yeah. Until I looked down and I was like, oh shit, that's not good.
Yeah, this just got expensive.
Yeah.
What is everybody running for sleeping pads, and are they happy with them? We'll go in reverse order. Vance, you go first.
I'm just running it's the insulated, what is it? Climate?
Climate.
Climate, yeah, that's it. Yeah.
The V-shaped pad, right?
Yeah. So I'm pretty short. I'm only like just over 5'8", and so I don't need a very big pad. It's light, and even running it with the quilt. And I mean, I don't know how cold it was down there.
We had a couple nights that I think it was probably 2 to 3 degrees.
Yeah. And
those first few nights, then it warmed up and it was hot as blazes.
Yeah. But even running that, no, I had good luck. Never deflated on me, or, I didn't lose any air, nothing like that. So I ran the non-insulated one for a few years now. This time I just went with the insulated. I just bought it just before we went, just for a little increase in R value. But even with the, that one's like the static V, it's like only a 2 rating, I think. But just for going pretty light. But yeah, no, good luck with it. It's a cheap too. It's only, I think, like they're only like 100 or 120, something like that.
Yeah. I do kind of like that baffle design. I don't like horizontal baffles. I always feel like I'm going to fall off the side. I prefer the vertical one, but I could see
it kind of bowls on you. And then it's nice because you can get like side sleep, and you can kind of get your shoulder to line up with one of the dips nice. And a little more comfortable on the pillow.
Yeah, nice. Leighton, what are you running for a pad?
NeoAir, X-Lite, just your bag of popcorn or your bag of chips, basically that
the old yellow ones, right?
Yeah, the old yellow ones, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a mommy style. I've never had an issue with it. Like I use a quilt, and I've never found that I'm sliding off that thing or falling off that thing. Maybe it's just the way I sleep or something, because I've heard a lot of guys complain about that. The noise doesn't bother me. But I don't know. Maybe I just sleep really well in the backcountry, but noise doesn't bother me. I mean, I guess if I was going to upgrade, I go for like the rectangle shaped sleeping pad with the bigger baffles on the outside, but I don't really have any need to right now. I quite enjoy that pad.
You can't beat that pad for weight. I think it's 12 ounces. It's crazy light.
Yeah, and it does everything I need to do. A buddy of mine has the same pad, and on this sheep hunt, he's complaining about how uncomfortable it was. And I said, let some air out of that fucking thing, man. Like,
I think that's the biggest mistake people make, too much air.
Yeah. And it was a new pad to him, so I don't think he realized, right? But I just said, let some air out of that thing. And once he done that last night there, he laid on it, and I told him, just lay on the stupid thing on your side or however you sleep, and then just reach up behind your head and just crank that valve a little bit, and just I kind of like to sit on it where like I'm basically sitting with my laying with my hip touching the ground, and then evenly distribute my weight. And if I come just off the ground and on that like on the pad completely, then I'm happy with how much air is in that pad. So
I do almost the exact same thing where I get up on my side. So my hip is kind of the only part and maybe my elbow. And I let out air until my hip touches the ground. And then when I disperse my weight evenly, I come up off the ground just enough that
exactly,
it's
yeah.
and I'm a side sleeper, and that's
Same.
as long as you're a quarter inch off the ground, your body doesn't know the difference between that and 2 inches.
Yeah.
What about you, Anthony?
This year I tried the Nemo Tensor, I believe it is.
Yeah.
An R4 pad. I was running the Climate for the last few years. It wasn't too bad. I do also tend to sleep on my side a bit. And Buddy that I was on the last trip with, he's also a side sleeper, and he was complaining that he was basically touching the ground. And I was very comfortable on mine. I was staying off the ground. Ran quilt for the first time this year as well. Stayed warm, no issue there. My only complaint is I would maybe go with a wide in the future.
Yeah.
I'm not a very small guy myself, and it is a little narrow, but I was happy with it. That'd be my one complaint, is I should have went with a wide, but trying to save ounces, right? I think that pad is for 15 ounces, I believe. So
yeah, I'm running the old school or the Big Agnes Q Core SLX, and I think it's 22 ounces. I have 1.5 pounds in my head for some reason, which I think is about 22 ounces. And I run it in the wide long. I'm on 6'1", 230 now. And I've tried to do mummy pads and I've tried to do everything else, and it just does not work for me. But one of the things that I was talking to Vance about on the goat hunt is that I am considering kind of running 2 different setups, because I think when hunts start to get over 7 or 8 days long and you're trying to go in all at once, I'd be willing to take a hit on some of those luxury items. Like there's a new Neo Air that actually looks pretty tolerable to me. I don't know if it's not the Uber Light, because that thing's even lighter. It's like halfway between an X Light and an X Therm, but it was around 16 ounces. And I was looking at it, I was like, that's interesting. Somebody's bringing up the Sea to Summit pads. They've got an Ether Light XT that looks really interesting to me. And I don't know the weight on it, but the new Big Agnes Rapide SL also looks really interesting to me. But from my testing, I want at least 3 inches of baffle, and like the Neo Air, I think is like 2.5. But I think I'm closer to 4 inches in that Q Core SLX. So I think it's a little bit more than I currently need. But
yeah, it looks like a mattress up there.
it's pretty cozy, man. Don't get me wrong. But dude, it's just like choose where to cut ounces. And I'm like, fucking with my sleep is not something I'm interested in doing. And it was funny when the Neo Air, that pad was the first pad I ever bought. Because Snyder told me to buy it. So I bought it and I slept terribly for 2 years. And I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. And then I bought a better pad and now I sleep better. I do think there is, for me and like the size of my body, I do think there's a middle of the road option that's not quite as heavy as my current pad. That would still give me a tolerable night's sleep. But yeah, I do think it's important to have a good. Oh, Cody's asking, how did the 50-degree quilt do? I didn't actually take the 50-degree quilt because I was, how do I say this without saying it? A company wanted me to test a prototype sleeping device. So that's what I was doing. So I didn't have the 50-degree quilt.
I did.
How did it go?
Awesome.
And you slept, what'd you sleep in? Puffies?
Grumman Puffies and the 50-degree Enlightened Enigma quilt.
And you slept like a champ.
No issues.
Yeah.
Oh, and we actually that weekend we went out for scouting was a below seasonal average weekend. We got 1 full day of rain, and I'd say overnight we were pushing 0 in those mountains. So I wish I had brought a thermometer, like just one of those little thermometers, just to kind of, justify what I was doing and kind of be able to like test it better.
For testing purposes, I think we need to start bringing that kind of stuff, because if you're going to talk
100%.
about like comfort ratings and survival ratings and you're like testing gear, like your brain cannot be trusted, man. Like depending on how tired you are, how much you've eaten, how much you've drank, like you could think it's 2 degrees when it's 12 degrees.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like, and again, on top of that, I was using the Durston instead of the Nyack, and whereas I can
Nyack's
go even
a warm
cold.
tent, man.
Exactly. I can go even colder on the Nyack. Like, so I'm using the Durston, a single wall tent. I'm using my Neo Air X Lite pad, which has, I can't remember, a 4.8 rating or whatever it is, a 50-degree quilt, and my Grummins. And I never got cold. And I think we got down, like I said, I would guess 5 degrees, 4 degrees overnight. In the Nyack, I'm pretty sure I could push -5, -10 in that system.
I think you could too. So for people wondering what we were talking about, and this is why me and Leighton are such good friends, I thought I had this epiphany that because you already have your puffy jacket and your puffy pants on 90% of like shoulder season backcountry hunts, then you also bring a pad or a bag that's comfort rated for that. You kind of have this like useless redundancy. Like you have 2 insulation systems for no reason. So my logic was, if I combine the kind of thermal insulation of my puffy layers and then subtract that from whatever I would need out of my quilt, and I put the 2 of them together, you can get away with a 50-degree synthetic quilt. Now, the reason that you run a synthetic quilt for this particular exercise is that when you layer down insulation inside of synthetic insulation, when condensation travels through down as vapor, it will not condensate. Like the moisture in your body heat rises. It forces the moisture through the down puffy layers. If you were only in a down bag or you only had down puffy layers, as soon as it hit the oxygen on the other side, it would turn to condensation and it would leak back into the down. Your down would compress and it would no longer hold loft. But because you have a synthetic shell on the outside, and this only works in one direction, you can't flip it around. If you have a synthetic shell on the outside, the vapor travels into the synthetic shell and condensates on the other side of the synthetic shell, giving you the best of 2 worlds, where you get the weight savings of a down system with the heat retention of a down system, but with the water resistance of a synthetic system. So the idea is you could still use your sleep system to dry yourself out. And what is a 50-degree quilt weigh? It's like 12 ounces or something, isn't it? Like it's nothing.
Mine's 11. Yeah.
Yeah. 11 ounces for a 50-degree synthetic quilt. So I thought I was such a genius for like figuring this out. And I'm like texting Leighton and he's like, yeah, I already have a 50-degree quilt. That's my exact plan for this year, which I thought was pretty hilarious.
Yeah. And it worked good. Like it pushed, like there was moisture on the outside of my quilt. And I think that's why I had so much condensation on the outside of that Durston X Mid tent, right? It was pushing all that moisture, whether it was sweat or we had high relative humidity, lots of rainfall like over the weekend. So I think basically all it was doing was pushing all that moisture through my system, out on the outside of the quilt, and then either stayed on the outside of the quilt or went to the single wall tent basically and piled up there. So it worked.
And
really
how
good.
were your puffy layers for moisture when you woke up in the morning?
None.
Like nice, super dry, super fluffy.
Yeah.
That's what happens to me. I can go to bed soaking wet inside a synthetic quilt or a synthetic bag, and when I wake up, my shit is like crunchy dry. Like I've never been able to achieve that level of, no matter how good the down was, it just doesn't work the same in a down bag as it does in a synthetic.
Yeah.
So this last trip we were on, I didn't quite go down to the 50. I wasn't quite willing to give that up. I went with the -6 quilt this year, synthetic. Mine's 2 pounds, 1 ounce is in a stuff sack, which was actually a pound lighter than my down bag I was running prior to that. But the one night there we killed a goat. We hiked back to camp for 2 hours in the rain and snow. And by the time we got back, everybody was soaked. I think we crawled into the tent there around 9:30, and my puffy layers weren't saturated, but my pants were. My pants were soaked. My t-shirt was soaked. Socks were wet. I was running the Kuyu super light down pants and then the Kafaru synthetic or Lost Park parka jacket. And I think when I was first laying in bed there for probably about the first half hour, 45 minutes, the thought was going through my head. Like, I know the system's supposed to work, but it was not warm. Like, we were cool. And, I was preparing myself for a long, cold, wet night. And I think probably by about 1 a.m., I woke up bone dry, cooking. My clothes were dry, puffy layers were dry, inside of the sleeping bag was dry. And then I just had that little bit of a moisture layer on the outside of the quilt. I was quite impressed with it.
And I missed it at the beginning, but you didn't go quite as bold as 50. What did you go with?
No, I went with the -6 synthetic.
Okay.
Yeah. I spent too many nights already in a lot of snow on the mountain, and I just wasn't going to a quilt to start with from the sleeping bag. I just wasn't quite willing to go to a 50-degree.
Yeah.
In the future, after running it a little bit more, might be something I look at. But
I did the exact same thing. So
the
first quilt I ever bought was a 20-degree Fahrenheit, which I think is -6 or 7 Celsius.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
And then I bought the matching 20-degree synthetic, which would have been exactly the same one that you bought. And I used the shit out of that. And then once I realized how powerful that was, I was like, my puffy layers are sitting right there doing nothing all night. All I need to do is put those on and I can get rid of, 30 degrees worth of weight in this quilt. Yeah. It's, and a lot of people, and this is why it's tricky, especially living in BC. Like, I listen to a lot of these guys do gear reviews, and I love the EXO guys, and they're really pro down, but it's like, you don't live in BC, man. Like, you don't understand what winter moisture is like in some of the locations, especially when you get into like late season goat hunting, late season mule deer hunting. Like, you are getting a combination of extremely high precipitation, extremely high humidity, and very low temperatures that just, other than Alaska, I can't think of anywhere else in North America where you see the same combination. And I really firmly believe if you want to use your sleep system to dry you out and you want something that's going to be bomb proof, the only answer is synthetic.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me a question. I was going to address it offline, and I'm sick of skirting around this issue. So somebody said, what is the beef with the come out heavy crew? Are they jelly, or is it overblown like the rivalry between the Northern Hunter fellas and Tundra Truck? I have no idea who these guys are. I've never met them in my life. I've never spoken to them. I could give less than one shit what they make or what they kill. I don't follow them on Instagram. I don't message them. I have no clue why they feel about me the way that they do. They've sent several really negative messages. Here's what I can tell you. I am way too busy building shit and doing things with my life to give a shit about what other people do with theirs. And my advice to guys like that would be, you're either just really unhappy in your own life, or you're not doing enough with yourself that you care that much about, someone else. The final straw for me, we were at a banquet at Sheep Show, and I guess one of those guys was at my table, and I introduced myself to him, and 5 minutes later, the guy got up and left. And it wasn't until after he left that somebody even pointed out to me that because I don't even know what they look like, that he was one of the come out heavy guys. And the thing for me is, you want to spend 3 years speaking about me online on your podcast and sending me messages, and then you're sitting at the same fucking table as me and you don't have the balls to say a single word to my face. It was kind of like, if that's the kind of man you are, then I even care less than I did previously. So Yeah, I cannot. This is the first time I've ever talked about it on the podcast. It will be the last time I ever talk about it on the podcast because, like I said, I got like, yeah, I'm way too excited and focused on the things that I'm doing and the kind of people that I get to hang out with and the adventures that I get to have than bother kind of surrounding myself with that kind of negativity. So, yeah, that's about all I got to say about that. Grizzly safety tips. We'll start winding her down here. I want everybody to have a chance to get to bed, and we all, got kids and whatnot. Maybe we'll do like 2 or 3 more, but I think this is a good one. I'll start in the middle and go to the sides this time. Leighton, what are some stuff you do when you're in grizzly country?
Usually, I mean, we've got our weapons. We don't always carry if I'm with a group of guys. The way I understand it is like your best defense against grizzlies is I mean, in Canada where you can't carry a handgun is numbers. So essentially, the more people you have, the less likely you're going to have a grizzly bear encounter. There's data to prove that. And generally speaking, I like to hunt with 3 guys, or maybe 4 and 5. We went on a sheep hunt last year with 5 guys. So generally speaking, that's a lot of scent, that's a lot of noise, that's a lot of stuff going on where grizzly bears just don't want to come in and mess with you. So power in numbers is one thing. I carry an air horn usually, not bear spray. I worked in forestry, wildland firefighting long enough to watch too many people mace themselves that don't understand how to use bear spray. So I carry an air horn. Again, when you're in your tent, if you're gonna have a grizzly bear encounter while you're in your tent, bear spray is absolutely fucking useless. So an air horn is something that will penetrate through that tent and possibly scare away that bear. Bear spray, you try and use bear spray in a tent, you're toast. And then this year and I think I've talked to Anthony a little bit about it, just for shits and giggles, I tested out the pack alarm system. The Spike Camp boys, I believe they created it. I may be wrong about that.
No, they bought it.
Bought it. Okay.
Yeah, there was another guy that created it, but Chuck's been keeping his eyes on it for a while, and they had an opportunity to buy the company with the associated patents and the gear, and then I believe they've gone through a significant like redesign and improvement.
Right.
And I think they had like a last few batches to like push out, but the new iterations are going to be somewhat improved. But give a high level overview of like what is pack alarm.
Well, maybe I'll let Anthony talk about that. I just went through quite a few things that most of us probably, and I know Anthony just tested it out, so maybe I'll let Anthony talk on that. I don't want to bore everybody with my monotone voice. So those are my things, and then I know Anthony's got some feedback on that system, so he can give the high level feedback on that one.
Yeah, I packed it in on the first couple goat hunts this year. It's a pretty slick little system. It's pretty easy to set up. It's basically a backup alarm on steroids, basically. It's got, I believe the instructions there said that it's got enough 30-pound braid wrapped inside to go around 3 basketball courts, I believe is what it said. Comes with a few little Velcro clips. If you don't have trees around or something, you can Velcro it to, on our first hunt, I knew where I was going. I wasn't going to be anywhere near trees. We were camping on the very top. And it was a short hike in. Weren't going in with full packs. It was only 2-3 days. So I actually packed in a couple bamboo sticks and just shoved them into the ground, put a couple of rocks around the bases, and then ran it around that. If you're in the trees, I was talking to Blake about it, you can just wrap around the trees themselves. You don't actually need to put it attach it to anything. You don't need to put the clips on, just go right around the base. And it takes about a foot to 2 feet of pressure on the line, depending on how tight you set it to trip it. And when you trip it, it's just a really loud alarm. It's got a LED light on there with a few different settings. I think you can put it on like a flashing setting or a solid setting. It's not going to stop anything from coming into your camp, but it give you a good warning, right? With that much string in there, you can set it up 50, 60 feet around your tent if you have the space. And, finding out there's a grizzly in your tent 50 feet away is a lot nicer than 5 inches away. So it's a handy little thing. I think it weighs, the way I have it packed, I think it's like 7 or 8 ounces.
Couple AA batteries for
one
9
volt.
volt. Okay.
Yeah. I ran into a couple guys up where we were on the last hunt, and they'd actually packed in a full bear fence, like a 3-strand electric fence. I don't know what it weighs, but I guarantee you that pack alarm is a lot lighter. It's a pretty sweet little setup. I'm happy with it. I'm going to do some more testing with it. I spent a lot of time in Grizz country. I go out 2 weeks ago, I had a 6-7 foot grizz hanging out in my neighborhood. So I live with them year round. I'm used to it. Just be due diligent, right? I'm usually hunting with 1 or 2 guys as well. I don't usually do too much solo stuff. I pack bear spray on my vinyl harness. When I'm packing in the mountains, I run the Faru pack with the gun bearer. So I have the gun right there ready all the time. If I find myself in a hairy situation, sometimes I'll, last year coming out of a sheep hunt, we dropped probably 2,000 feet off of a scree slope, hit a thick patch. And as soon as we hit that patch of brush, we were into fresh digs, fresh bear poop, like from that morning. And we had about 200-300 yards of willows you're swimming through. You couldn't see 6 feet in front of you to get to the trail. So in a situation like that, I tend to usually just put the rifle in my hands. Knock on wood, I've been fairly lucky in the mountains. I haven't had too many issues. Definitely had a few run-ins locally, hunting moose and stuff, but the other thing too is like when I'm hiking through thick stuff, I'll, if I'm not worried about spooking sheep or anything, if I'm not that close, I'll just let out a couple hoots and hollers as I'm walking, going into dark, thick stuff. Just being aware and letting them know you're there, really.
Yeah. I don't know how much more we can say. Do you got anything in addition to any of that stuff, Vance?
No, just bear spray. I'm almost probably a little too passive with it. Had a few encounters, nothing crazy, but bear spray, keep my rifle close if I'm rifle hunting. And I think, like Anthony said, just be diligent, don't be leaving smelly food out, and, be smart about it.
That's one thing. I don't know how you guys do it, but growing up, it was always hang your food, get your food as far away from camp, don't cook around camp. And I very quickly learned when you're in the sheep mountains, you're usually sleeping with your food.
Dude,
I assume you guys do it too, right? Like
every time, and I keep a weapon close by. I usually have my rifle loaded in the tent. And I tried to be honest with this about people, and it's like one of these things that like nobody in the outdoor industry, they're all hanging up their food, and it's like when you get like that far back, or if you got dropped off by a float plane or something, like if my food gets taken, that could be worse than a bear attack. And so it's like, you want it, come fucking get it, man. Because I'm not, I would rather, I 100%. Now, I don't, you do things like an empty protein bar wrapper in the tent. Like I will still practice good food hygiene. Like I always have my garbage from previous days in multiple Ziplocs inside a dry bag with the rest of my food. So it's like before bed, everything gets condensed, wrapped inside bags, inside other bags, inside a dry bag. Like, I'm not doing things that would be inviting the smell of food to come from my tent. But most of the guys that I ask off air as well, I haven't met anybody who is actually hanging up their food.
I mean, what do you do with it, right?
Yeah.
Like,
well, and where are you going to hang it? Like,
well, yeah, some guys say, oh, rock pile it or whatever.
Yeah.
Last year I had marmots chewing on my stuff inside my tent. So if I put my food 100 yards away from my tent and they're eating in the middle of the night and I don't hear it, if you're 4 days back and your food's all been munched on by rodents, well, that's not going to make for a very fun trip, right?
No. Yeah, I wasn't sure if I was going to bring that up or not, so I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, it's just be due diligent with not leaving crumbs in the tent, and I mean they're gonna smell you anyways, so it's just one of those things I think guys just has to get used to. What was that?
Well, just like also my thought too is if your food's in the tent with you, hopefully they smell you and don't want to go for the food.
Yeah.
Right. If you got your food laying 200 yards away, they're going to smell it, not smell you, and just go take it with no hesitation.
Yeah, I know a lot of guys that will stick a trekking pole in the ground and put their base layer on that trekking pole, like just outside the tent, assuming it's not gonna, piss rain that night or something. Just the scent, like obviously 3, 4, 5 days into a backcountry hunt, your base layer is going to reek. So you just put that out there, wrap it around your trekking pole, or drape it over your tent, and that will be, in a lot of cases, enough to keep them away from your tent.
Yet another argument for a synthetic base layer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
People are trying to run away from the stink. I say bring the stink, man.
Yeah.
All right, let's wrap this up. It's 9:00. This was, I tried doing some live podcasts maybe 2 years ago. I think I was doing them mostly myself. I kind of wanted to pilot this tonight because I'd like to try and do this like once a month. Some of my favorite podcasts are just 4 dudes sitting around shooting the shit. So everybody who tuned in tonight, if you go on my Instagram story, I tagged Vance, Leighton, and Anthony. Please give those guys a follow. They're all really solid guys who are super passionate about the outdoors. All dudes that I like to hang out with, and dudes that I ask for advice regularly. And let me know and let them know, if you liked this, what worked, what didn't, what you'd like to see more of. This is the kind of people always think I'm hardcore because I do everything solo, and it's just I'm super shitty at hanging out with people, and I would much rather be by myself all the time because it's easier for me. So I'm doing what I can to like do more hunts with other people and do stuff like this with other people. So yeah, let us know if you like it and what you want to see moving forward. But I was pretty surprised. We had good 20, 25 people in the room all night. So that's pretty good attendance for kind of no notice and just winging this one. So I know everybody's kind of got a bunch of stuff in the chamber for September. So I wish everybody the best of luck, and let's see lots of grip and grins here in the next few weeks.
Back some bodies, eh?
That's it.
Yeah.
All right, lads. Have a good night. Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, guys.